Action Lines, a conversation podcast about writing and storytelling in your favorite video games.
The developers of Harold Halibut may have sculpted cool characters, but did they also write a good story?
We are two screenwriters who want to find out. I'm Chris.
And I'm Tom. Chris, screenwriting is my favorite form of writing because you have to think very carefully about how you're going to bring your words to visual life. Writing prose is neat because you get to be very elaborate and enrich someone's imagination. But with screenwriting, you're writing a blueprint for something visual. And I've always loved it since I got into filmmaking, but it exists as a template for video game development as well. And so I always think about it when I'm playing a game.
Yeah, I think it's a good way for you to lay out what exactly is going to happen throughout your story. And as we are going to be talking about narrative stories here, and yeah, like I think it's a good way for you to kind of just plot your course, whether it be a linear narrative or one that has multi facets or multi positions where your character can go. So I think it is a great way to just kind of lay it out and make sure you keep things organized, because that is really important too when you're writing a screenplay, is making it really writing anything of a with the story, I would say.
And when it comes to the visual arts, which video games are, sorry, Roger Ebert, but video games are visual art, story is king if you're trying to tell one. Obviously, I'm not going to be like, where is the conflict in Pac-Man? But when it comes to what you and I want to do with this show, story is king. So in true screenwriting tradition, before we get into things, do you want to give our audience the treatment of Harold Halibut?
Sure. In a science fiction far future setting, the spaceship Fedora 1 has been submerged under an alien ocean for decades after taking off and fleeing Earth during the height of the Cold War. Its residents have adapted to living in a makeshift society governed by the corporate employees of Allwater, who control transportation and energy consumption for all the citizens.
Our lead, Harold Halibut, is a well-meaning but meek handyman who performs tasks and chores for the various citizens of the ship. He is a protege of Professor Moreau, a scientist interested in whether the Fedora will ever be able to escape the alien planet's deep ocean.
When a transmission is intercepted from planet Earth indicating that the wars of old are over and it's safe to come back, Professor Moreau calculates that there is a 90-day window for the ship to successfully take off. Otherwise, the Fedora will be trapped for some time. Allwater announces a plan to launch the ship with an ice-based technology, but Moreau doubts this plan and recruits Harold and others to come up with a better option.
As Harold assists in preparing the ship for its escape, he meets Weeoo, a fish-like member of the planet's native species. Weeoo learns about humans and eventually trusts Harold enough to take him to their home, the village of the Flyum.
Harold and the company realize that the Flyum have an energy source which could allow the Fedora to escape. Working together, they intend to harvest the energy. Along the way, Harold also discovers a conspiracy by Allwater, wherein the citizens of Fedora have been lied to about the amount of time they actually experience in a day. Allwater is controlling not just their daily lives, but their perception of time as well.
Harold and Weeoo succeed in their mission to collect a new energy source from deep in the planet's core, but return to discover that Allwater's plan to escape the planet has backfired and completely frozen the ship in an underwater ice block.
Harold, Moreau, Weeoo, and their companions work together and free the ship. They also reveal the time conspiracy to the residents, which exposes that the Fedora actually has more time to escape the planet.
With time on their side, the citizens fix the ship and leave the alien world behind, with Harold choosing to remain on the planet to live with Weeoo and the Flylum, eager to start a new chapter in his life.
Right. That was quite the treatment and quite the story.
It is. So with any good screenplay, once you're ready to go from the treatment to actually writing the damn thing, you of course need the inciting incident and the primary conflict. So Chris, within like the first 10 pages, which is kind of considered the golden metric of if a producer or a money man is even going to keep reading your script, what do you think about the first, let's estimate the first 10 pages of Harold Halibut and kind of decide, what did you think about the opening, and where do you think the inciting incident comes in?
Wow. True to the developer's name, Slow Bros, this game does have a slow burn, I will say. And it's funny because when you think about it, the game is probably about 10 hours of gameplay, all in all. I would say that the inciting incident really happens at the 2-hour mark, if that. And for me, that was when Harold meets Weeoo.
When Weeoo is found in the ship's filtration system.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I think that's because for me, that's really when I saw saw Harold do something outside of his norm, because I feel like that for the first 2 hours of this game, you're kind of like walking through his kind of day-to-day activities, helping Moreau with her tasks, and like everyone else throughout the ship that he needs to kind of help and deal with. I think that's where I felt like something changed. He needed to react to this particular situation because it's something that was out of the norm. He found Weeoo in that filtration system, which he normally cleans, and normally there's no one in there. So he was just like, well, what am I supposed to do? How do I deal with this? And and everyone else has to react to this situation as well.
Gotcha.
What did you think?
Yeah, I agree with you in terms of this game's pace, which we can discuss more later, that it's slow going. What I appreciated about the opening is that Harold's kind of personality as a bit of a charming dope means that exposition can be delivered to him and thus the player in a pretty convincing way. For example, in the beginning, Harold's having a conversation with Professor Moreau, and she says something along the lines of butterflies in my stomach, and Harold's like, "What's a butterfly?"
But Harold, I'm tired of chasing after you like you're a stupid butterfly.
Hang on. What's a butterfly? That sounds silly.
A butterfly is an insect from Earth. They had beautiful patterns on their wings and drank pollen from flowers. I suppose you could say they often appeared in extra natural moments in life. On the other hand, they were terribly inefficient, flighty, overly trusting, and delicate.
And it allows her to kind of transition into, we're not on Earth. It's like, oh, okay, this is natural. This is like natural dialogue that puts you in a place and it doesn't feel forced. The fact that Harold is, he's a gopher, he's a mechanic, he's a handyman. The fact that he has to go all around the ship by virtue of his job gets you into the setting. It does a lot of world building. So it's efficient, and I admired that. I think for me, what I would call the primary conflict comes a little earlier, around the time where the message from Earth is received by the Fedora, because that sets the urgency. These citizens have been trapped in this little ship city for decades, a long time, like generations of the ship's original citizens have lived and died. And now they have a message from home, and that's the new goal is, okay, we know we can return to Earth. Let's go.
Okay. I mean, I guess that's interesting because I get for me, there's two conflicts there. There's the conflict of the whole ship needing to get off the planet and trying to find a way off. But like for me, because the game is called Harold Halibut, I was like, okay, like let's talk about like what is his conflict right now. And I think it was kind of there's a moment in the game where he's just singing to himself, right? And I think this happens a little bit before. And I thought that was just like a very like a powerful moment. I
loved it. I loved it
because it was just a moment where he was just like, he's really putting it out there. He's like, is this all that life is for me? Like, is there nothing else for me? Like, what does it matter? Like, what's the point of life?
Cleaning, fixing, running around and fetching stuff, doing stuff. It could be worse, but there must be more. More to life? Cleaning, fixing, running all around. Wait, what's that sound? Isn't there more to life? I clean and I fix till my legs feel like bricks. My best friend is a mop. I work till I drop. And for what? No medals or treats. I don't get silk sheets, but oh, I'm the first guy they call for a leak. There must be more to life. I could be an artiste, my name would be feted, or a chef whose every dish was celebrated. But maybe this is my destiny, trouble and strife. And perhaps that's okay. At the end of the day, what more could there be to life?
you feel like almost there's a little more of a pep in Harold's step when everything like when we like arrives, for lack of a better term, because like they do just kind of get stuck in the air filtration system, and then all this other
Sure.
stuff happens. But yeah, like he really is like like you said, the gopher for everything. He's just kind of, and you can see the way people treat him too, right? Monroe really like talks down to him a lot
Yeah.
throughout at least like the first part of the game. Cyrus like like shocks him with like tells him to do all that stuff to help with the 3D printing, but he didn't really have to do it. He just wants to mess with them. Like people are like that with him. They just had to kind of bully him, and he's just like he just kind of takes it because that's just his nature. But like but I definitely see your point though, because that is definitely something that is happening throughout. I would say that I almost feel like there's two main threads that happen throughout this game. They do kind of converge eventually at the end, as we kind of talked about here. And Harold's involved with both of them, right? He's the one that's kind of like let's try to get this ship going, but then he makes a decision for himself. Like he helps, he's still doing his part, being the gopher to a degree, but at the end he's like, you know what, I'm happier here. I'm gonna stay here. I'm choosing this for myself. And I thought it was like very heartwarming in a way too, because he finally got I feel like a place that he felt like he belonged.
Yeah, fair points all around. Absolutely. What I think the arrival of Weeoo is, just in my interpretation, is probably the point of no return.
Okay.
Which a good screenplay needs to kind of motivate the journey of its main character. Some might call it a hero's journey. But popular examples would include Luke deciding to follow Obi-Wan Kenobi after finding his aunt and uncle are murdered in Star Wars A New Hope, or Harry Potter choosing to follow Hagrid and leave his horrible aunt and uncle. A lot of aunt and uncles and following people in these examples. But, there's just a point where there is no going back. And the arrival of Weeoo in Harold's life kind of does mark the point of no return, because from there, he becomes the first person to encounter alien life, and there's a little bit of some running jokes in this that Harold, who is kind of considered maybe the lowliest person on the Fedora 1 spaceship city, keeps hitting all these milestones for the first time. But back to, if I can for a moment, the scene where Harold is singing. It's not just that he's singing, it's that he sings incredibly well. He's got such a good voice, a good baritone, that when he sang, I was like, I like this character a lot, because he's got a shitty job. People, as you mentioned, kick him around because it's like, oh, he's just the janitor, whatever. But he's got something, and he doesn't let the world drown that out, but he does want more. And he finds his opportunity to seek more when, things start kicking in. We got to get off this planet. We've got to figure out what's up with this fish alien. So if this was being written for the screen, I think you could do a lot of these things in 10 to 15 pages, especially with some of the examples we've been talking about. They do have moments of efficiency, but in the purpose of this game, they are smoothing things out. They want you to really live in Harold's world. They want you to work Harold's shitty janitor job. But again, I admire that they made me live in his shoes for as long as they did, because when he just starts singing by himself alone in the filtration room, like probably literally the toilet of the ship, I'm like, oh, what a guy. What a guy. So that's what I thought about the early game structure. What did you think about the game as it opened up, as we kind of got into more if Act 1 ends with the arrival of Weeoo and we move into Act 2 where things really start picking up? What did you feel about the structure throughout from there?
I feel like the way that I broke it down was Act 1, like you mentioned, ends with Weeoo being discovered, and I think Act 2 was just really Harold kind of trying to make a connection with Weeoo. And there's still conflicts and stuff like that are going on within the Fedora, where the all water company is still doing like weird stuff, like we mentioned with the time. And so there's like this underground organization, I believe we call the Lightbringers,
the Lightkeepers,
thank you. And how they are trying to like expose the truth. But I still I feel like the overall main thread in Act 2 was Harold just trying to make a connection with Weeoo. And then eventually, now this is where I'm not entirely sure when Act 3 really starts for me, but I think when Act 3 starts is when he does the dive into the energy source.
That's an interesting point to put it. So to fill in some points of reference there.
Mhm.
Yeah, Act 2 is very much Weeoo learning about humans, living on the ship with Harold, but Harold is keeping Weeoo hidden
Right.
because he doesn't know what consequences could come about. And then you keep exploring the ship, and there's A plots and B plots because
Yeah.
Harold will like have drinks with the captain of the ship, or he will help somebody with their relationship troubles, but he'll always keep coming back to Weeoo and being like, this is what humans do, and Weeoo's like, that's weird, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
Weeoo eventually takes Harold to the cave city
Yep.
that they live in with their race, the Phylum, and then Harold's now learning about Weeoo and their people. I would say that like Act 3 actually kind of kicks into gear after they go down to the Phylum planet core and find the energy source as you need. But when they come back and they think, oh, we're good, we get to like the second act climax of, oh, the Allwater Corporation
Yes.
plan to escape the planet failed, and now we have to save the city. So like that's kind of more what I think is the culmination of / the end of Act 2. Allwater's plan to kind of use the ship's air conditioning system to
Yeah.
ice their way off the planet.
That's that damn Slippy.
Yeah.
It was that's interesting. That's like, I feel like that's way farther down into the game, where Act 3 starts. Okay.
And that, I think that's just an interesting. I think my own interpretation is interesting. No,
Yeah.
that's what I think is interesting in our little experiment with this show, where we want to look at the 3-act structure of a common screenplay and say how does a game map this out when a game doesn't have to fit into 120 minutes.
Right.
So obviously much longer. But if I were adapting Harold Halibut, those are kind of where I would map those beats screenwriting wise.
Okay, fair enough.
Here's something I feel about the structure, and I want to pitch this to you.
Yeah.
This game is reverse Wall-E. Wall-E is a robot forced to clean up Earth who meets an alien, Eve, who takes him to a spaceship where humanity is stuck in space, and he helps them learn about the beauty of Earth and about how their corporate overlords are oppressing them, and Wall-E helps the humans get back to Earth.
Yeah.
Harold is a cleanup guy on a ship full of humans that's already stuck in space.
Yeah.
And he meets an alien who shows him the beauty of their world.
Right.
And he helps the humans escape space, but he chooses to stay in space. And I thought it was a little interesting. I'm not accusing any plagiarism, but I just thought a lot of the beats were pretty amusing to see kind of happening in reverse or just out of order. I don't know how familiar you are with Wall-E or what you think about that interpretation.
It's been a minute since I've watched the movie, but I can totally see what you're saying there, and maybe that's where they were inspired by it too, right? It's an interesting way to think about it. For me, what is a similar story? I don't know. I mean, I thought it was more about the fact that this is it's the typical where hero wants to do more. Like he feels like I have more potential, or I can do something that's outside of my norm, and there is like someone out there that kind of pulls him out of his norm, and he gets to experience life. I mean, but yeah, like as I'm saying this right now, I'm like, yeah, that's pretty much Wall-E. I'm like, so it's like,
yeah, but that's not necessarily to say, even though I made the comparison, I know what you're saying is 1-to-1. It's like any character that expresses a want, that expresses a desire, and then is launched into something that takes them where they never thought they would be.
Right.
It's Charlie Bucket in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Yeah.
It's Ariel in The Little Mermaid. You know what I mean? Like, you just need that one chance encounter or that one chance moment, and then where are you now? Yeah. Here's a question I have for you.
Yeah.
I was thinking a lot about the themes that this game is attempting to speak to. There's a lot of obvious ones, corporate greed hurting people's lives, desire for something more, as you've been saying. What do you think the ultimate kind of moral of the story or message for the audience is, given that Harold does the right thing for humanity but leaves it all behind? What was kind of the big thematic takeaway?
I'm gonna, I guess, quote something from the game, because because you end the ending shows this character's face in the stars, and that's Buddy. He does say something to Harold very early on.
Just keep on moving, Harold. You never know when you'll have to slow down, so keep going while you can.
for me, I think that really touched on the theme of like Harold has already gone through this shit with everything that in his life so far, and now he will have that moment to slow down with Weeoo because he's gone through all this stuff that he's had to deal with. And I think that was just like a great way to summarize like how like the theme of perseverance and the theme of staying true to yourself throughout all this everything that's going on, because like you said, there's corporate greed, there's all this like kind of corruption, there's there's just people that you encounter throughout the entire experience that are not great, but maybe not the best of intentions, but like Harold does just try to think the best of everyone in the best way that he can. And he's a little bit of a dope, but you could see he's a lovable dope because of that. And yeah, so I thought that was just a good way of like maybe summarizing how I felt about the themes in this. But I don't know how you I know you mentioned a couple too right now, but maybe you have a harder take or a hotter take there. Or not.
No, I'm not trying to burn anything to the ground with my takes. But it's obviously Buddy is a very seminal character in this that Harold talks to frequently and then has a big impact. What I found most interesting is a lot of the conversations that Harold and Weeoo have as they're both trying to understand each other's perceptions of the world and how their kind of like cultures clash or don't clash. Harold has a lot of conversations about the concept of home with Weeoo. And a lot of these happen in the major moment where they go into the planet's core. They Harold and Weeoo seem to almost have like a drug trip where they have all these very impressive visualizations of emotional problems. Harold and Weeoo have a conversation in one of these fever dreams where there's a question of where's home?
Weeoo, do you ever wonder...
About what?
No, it's stupid. I shouldn't even bother you with it.
You can tell me anything.
It's just...
Are you sure you want to tell me?
No. I don't know. Maybe. I just wonder, have I been useful at all? What have I really done? This whole time, people have only given me stuff to do when they haven't been bothered to do it themselves. Has there been anything that only I was able to do?
So you're helpful. What's bad about that? You make the lives of everyone around you easier.
But anyone could do that.
I don't think they would give you things to do if they didn't trust you.
Maybe. I suppose. But what if we're all doing the wrong thing anyway?
Like what? Eating jam instead of wieners?
No, I mean, that's just personal taste.
So, what can be a wrong or a right thing?
I don't know. Where's home? Is there a wrong or right place for home? Maybe the fedora is fine down here. What if taking off is the worst thing that we could do?
How do you decide anything? It's all so complicated with you humans.
As you say, this does bleed into Buddy's philosophy, but Harold comes to the ultimate decision that he does by letting go of the rigid lifestyle that he lived on the Fedora. And maybe that's good for the citizens there. It's not a judgment call. It's a personal choice call. The kind of broad notion is he stays on the alien planet because he wants a new life. And it's like, yes, but I think the interesting layer underneath it is that he looks at the life that he could have with the Flylum, who by their own admission, they don't understand human stress. They don't understand human indecisiveness. Weeoo says at one point,
oh, and you understand everything human?
Well, yes. Humans are so unpredictable and complicated. There is almost nothing to understand. You're like...
The all-water tube system?
I was going to say fizzy bubbles, but okay.
Harold takes a lot of meaning in that, and I agree to that too, that like it can be overwhelming, so sometimes it's best to just, as you said, slow down. And I like that. I enjoyed what the game was doing with a lot of its kind of big questions and what answers it does give.
I did enjoy the conversations that they had, because it's like he's trying to I guess simplify the human element, being human. Like, what does it mean? And like they're both kind of playing this dance, right, to try to help one another understand each other's, like each other's society and like how things work. And yeah, you're right. It's like it's very simple with the phylum. It's just like this is how we do it, and that's it. Like there's nothing else to think about. It's like you almost feel like they are just kind of slightly evolved in the sense that they do feel like they are a society that works together, like like a school of fish or whatever it is, and they kind of move and operate together in that way. And where humans, they just kind of do what they want. Like yes, we do kind of group in packs, but it's still like there's still some individualism that's there, and there doesn't seem to be that in the phylum. And
if I could speak to that, because I agree with you with the phylum's alien society, it's the obvious kind of almost cliche thing, but they haven't been poisoned by capitalism, by money, by greed. But there's a line from Weeoo that says, once you know there's more, happy isn't the same. And Harold responds with, maybe that's why I haven't been happy in a while. You just said the phylum live a very simple life. They've got everything they need, and what they don't have, they don't even think about. When Harold and Professor Moreau and everybody find the energy source on the planet, they're like, holy crap, this has been here?
Well, hasn't anyone tried going down there before?
No. It's just there. We know the particles can be used for energy. They come up. Why would we go down?
To find out what's down there. Maybe it could bring up loads of particles at once.
But we don't need more particles at once.
Wow. Okay.
Why explore just for the sake of more? Like that's a concept in the game that I think is interesting, is more. And is more a good thing when you can be happy with what you have? There's several characters that I think embody that, including the character you mentioned, Slippy, aka Schleppmeyer, that's the secret villain of the game, who he just seems like he's a little toady within the Allwater Corporation, but what he really wants to do is he's saying, hey, I'll use my freezing air conditioner technology to get the ship off planet. But the kind of climactic twist is that he freezes the ship into a big block of ice so that he can sell more of his winter clothing line wear. And he's like, if I keep you trapped here on the planet and I freeze everything to make the temperatures lower, you'll have to buy my clothes. So his desire for more almost costs the fedora everything.
Right. But I thought that what was interesting was the fact that Weeoo kind of had that curiousness, right? They were like, I wanted to explore a little bit, and that's how they got stuck in the air filtration system of the fedora, right? Because there was some kind of curiousness. So it's like, is that society kind of evolving, or is it just Weeoo that is becoming a little bit more like, hey, maybe I do want a little bit more. Maybe this life isn't enough for me. And maybe now that Harold stayed with Weeoo, maybe that's enough. Maybe that's all they need to know, is that there's someone else out there, and this confirmed it, and then they can be content with
that's all the more that both Harold and Weeoo need.
Right.
Content. That's contentment, as you just said.
So I mean, like you said, like I think Harold has been searching to be content, to be happy, and it's kind of sad. It is kind of sad because like you don't really hear about his family at all, but they had to be there because he was born on the ship. And there's a joke I think later on in the game where they're like, wait, how old are you, Harold? Because if you look at his style, he's like, he does look like an older person. He's like, I'm in my 20s. Like, whoa, like that's a hard 20, buddy. He's like, what the hell? Like,
it's a lack of vitamin D underwater. Everyone gets a little waxy.
Oh man, yeah. So I thought that was great. But and it also clarified things for me too, because I was like, this guy's got to be at least in his like 40s or something, because he looks like he lived a hard life, and in a way he has, right? He has lived a hard life. So yeah, I mean, it's just it was just overall just like a very fulfilling story for myself, I would say. But I don't know how you felt about it.
Gotcha. Well, we're talking about feelings, talking about dialogue. How did you feel about the quality of the dialogue in this script? Do you have any best, worst moments other than what we've mentioned?
Well, yeah, like I said, I did mention one quote that kind of stuck to me. There's just been, I just feel like some of the interactions that Harold had with some people, there's definitely some profound stuff that gets said later on, like that whole scene with that whole like very trippy scene, like I feel like when they're sitting on the sofa, it was like an homage, like When Harry Met Sally, like those little interviews that they did or whatever.
Weeoo, you know, I've got a good feeling about this.
I have a great feeling too. Everything is bubbly.
Wow, I know what you mean. Like, we're being carried along by loads of tiny floating little bubbles and anything is possible.
Like I'm just going to float along. A gentle tide that only wants what's best for us.
Early on, where Harold's just kind of like working through the ship, he goes to the arcade and he meets Eve for the first time, and he goes, "Hey there," and Eve goes, "The name's Eve, not there." And I was it was just like it's so stupid. It was like such a dad joke kind of thing, but I was like, all right, okay, this is the kind of humor that we're gonna probably get. It's such a quirky game, quirky dialogue. I think throughout like every interaction that you have with Raffi is just like it's just so strange. But I was like, okay, this is what we're here for.
Is everything okay?
The tube route to the school in the social district is out.
Oh, right. Makes sense. Annoying.
That's not what's annoying.
Oh?
Kids. Everywhere. All the time. No school means no peace. They're just hanging around, taking up space, playing all the arcades.
Oh dear. But isn't that what this place is for? Kinda? Oh, I see. Good luck.
And then like I would say like the overall, I thought the dialogue was good, but the one that I was like, it kind of made me roll my eyes was when Castle Chop was trying to mess with the air conditioning system.
The evil Castle Chop, the evil CEO.
The evil CEO, yes. And she's talking to Schlipmeyer, and she's like, well, like, you know, it only goes to 10. He's like, but this one goes to 11. I was like, oh, okay, it's like a Spinal Tap thing. And I was like, you know, but of course it had to be said from the most horrible character in the show, in the in the game. But yeah,
I'm not trying to be like, well, plot hole, but I actually have to wonder, wait a minute, the Fedora left planet Earth at what they imply to be the height of the Cold War,
right?
And this is Spinal Tap. It did not come out until the 1980s. So how could Schlettmeyer possibly have known about that reference?
Yeah, you're right. But we're observing it.
No,
so
I hear you. I hear everything you're saying.
What did you think about any quotes and dialogue that really kind of stuck to you?
Some deep stuff, some funny stuff. As you said, this is a game that it's interesting that it has a style visually that reminds me of Wallace and Gromit.
Yeah.
Because there are some lines where I'm like, did a British person write this? Because there's droll and dry humor.
Yeah.
That I think will like really surprise you from time to time. And then there's just like very interesting stuff that speaks to me. Only boring people get bored.
Yeah.
Simple stuff like everyone can make mistakes, but not everyone can learn from them. You know, just like nice. Yeah. It's a game that has uplifting vibes and it wants to stick to that. So I do admire it in that regard. Which
is kind of interesting because for the most part, he is kind of Harold's just been, you know, like we talked about, where I guess we're kind of beating this into a dead horse here, or beating a dead horse here, but he is just constantly being shut down with his ideas and everything. But it's interesting that they were still able to make the overall story be a positive message. Like they did drop those little nuggets of positivity throughout it, where you're not just always like just feeling bad for Harold. Like there's things that he's learning throughout his journey, which, you know, I did appreciate.
In terms of worst dialogue, I think the moments where I got taken out of the game is just how many really long moments of the scientist characters, you know, Professor Moreau and Cyrus, they go on and on in like really dry technical scientific terms.
That would contradict the potential implications.
What is it, Professor?
It's these readouts. I think I know what they mean.
Oh, what have they told you?
The rock strata looks like carbonaceous chondrite. Rare, but the aminos backdating.
I just need to pinpoint what went wrong.
Did you double check the velocity correction?
Of course, but the power differential.
Yes, I know. But that doesn't mean anything without a variable energy diffusal.
So you keep saying, but unless we run the model enough times.
If I could just...
And Harold just kind of stands there with a blank look on his face, and like the kind of commentary or the joke is like Harold doesn't know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
But the game has like far too many instances of it with far too many characters. Bridget, I forgot about Bridget.
Yeah,
also,
Bridget, yeah.
They just go on and about the particles, but the wavelength functionality, the response metric, and it's like it's so much that it actually like began to kill pacing for me, because these aren't like incidental dialogue. These are like parts of cutscenes that Harold just has to sit there and go, okay, and
yeah.
I don't know if it was intended to be a joke about like, listen to this big brainy moment and how Harold won't get it, but like, I was like, this is a rough choice.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could argue that it's just that they want, like, I guess they really want to hammer home that these guys are really smart. And also I feel like, especially with Moreau and Cyrus, like there's that conflict with them throughout the entire game until like, I guess they come to the end where they're just like, okay, well, let's actually work together and make sure we can get this going, get the Fedora off this planet. But you know, you as Harold are just in between this bickering between the two of them, and they're always trying to one up each other, right? Like they are trying to show which one's the smarter person, who's always right all the time. So yeah, I guess, but I could totally understand where you're going with it. It's just like, all right, we get it, these guys are both very smart, or you know, Moreau and Cyrus are very smart, we don't need to keep bringing this up. But I guess they just wanted to remind us every so often, like, hey, they're still not on great terms or whatever. But
I get that. Yeah. Well, we're doing some more best worsts. Do you have any best worst characters? How did you feel about the cast, the very large cast of this game?
Yeah, it was a pretty large cast, but I will say for the most part, everyone was pretty memorable. I will say though, the one of the worst characters outside of Slipmeyer was the Major.
The self-appointed cop of the ship,
yes,
I guess.
Just because he was just like, I didn't feel like there was really anything like, he just was always out to get someone. I think there might have been one point near the end where he does something where you're like, okay, I guess. But I was like, you've still been a jerk to Harold this entire time, always writing up tickets for him and all that stuff. So he's probably my most disliked character throughout my playthrough. And one of my favorite characters is only by name, but Chris I thought was a great character.
Yes, he teaches what seems to be the only school on the ship.
Yes, he's just a lovable oaf. You know, he does seem to have like a heart, like honestly, like a heart of gold. Like he does spread. He's like that. He's spreading positivity. I guess it's just because he's a teacher and he's got to have that kind of pep in his step. And I just thought it was also hilarious when he smacked Slippy in the face at the end, and he still felt bad. He felt bad about it. He was mad, but he still felt bad about it. And it was just, I don't know. It was a great moment.
Look, let's not be hasty. If I could just show you my plans, I was only trying to...
I'll show you a plan!
Eesh.
Oh, shit! My hand!
Well, that settles it, I suppose.
Thanks, Chris.
Is he okay? Gosh, I was overcome with emotion thinking of the children. I hope I didn't overdo it. Please no one tell them about this.
And I feel like he had a presence to him that was a sight to behold. I will say, he's just walking around in his robe this entire time in the game.
His silk robe, yeah. Even when he's teaching, it's like, you only wear one outfit, dude.
Yeah. What about you, Tom?
Harold, really carries you through this game. Yeah. I think he's a very interesting character that I liked getting to learn more about and hang out with. But if that's like the boring answer, I would say that I really enjoyed learning about the quadruplet brothers, three of whom are yes, like bureaucrat secretaries on the ship.
Yeah.
And the one that it's a 3-to-1 ratio where 3 of them work for All Water, and they're kind of officials on the ship. But then the fourth one, he wanted to go into food service, and so he
Mhm.
opens his own hot dog stand, and the other brothers are like, "Ah, this guy's a bum," and you kind of help them, kind of learn to appreciate their differences and come back together as a family. I enjoyed them as a side character quest.
Yeah.
And just in terms of worst, I gotta say, I think the biggest character whiff of the game for me actually turned out to be the Light Keepers, where
Okay.
I really thought there was going to be some kind of interesting, like, rebellion kind of society, like the citizens of Zion and the Matrix fighting back
Yeah.
against the machines, and then they purposely pull the rug out from under it as a joke. It's like, no, it's just all the children on the ship
Right.
who think that, like, the adults in charge are doing something weird, and they, as you mentioned, they unearth the conspiracy where all water created its own version of time,
Yeah.
and the kids are eventually the ones who, like, help Harold figure it out, like, hey, they've been, like, literally, like, shaving hours off of every day of our existence and, like, dictating when we can sleep, when we can travel,
Yeah.
and so I don't know, I just thought, like, once it was revealed to be them, I just kind of, like, got, like, annoyed. I don't know. I was
Yeah, yeah, I
like,
can see that. I can see that.
and because, like, they all have this, like, kind of obnoxiously precocious kid energy of, like, oh yeah, like, I don't know, so
Yeah.
wasn't
mean,
feeling it. Wasn't feeling it personally.
for me also, in terms of a character, I mean, she did have redeeming qualities eventually. There are moments where she was like very motherly to him, but like Moreau, I
Moreau could
thought
be a
just
dick. She could be
yeah,
a dick.
she was like such a jerk to Harold for most of the game. And but like there was that one moment where he was sick and she's like, here, let me take care of you. Come upstairs, let me warm you up and like, drink tea. Like I just like so there is a good person underneath all that,
Mhm.
rough, cantankerous personality that she has. And yeah, like I think but it was just like, oh man, like but at the same time I guess she didn't like admonish like Harold for staying. She's like, I don't know why you're like, she was like, okay, I understand why you made the decision, I appreciate it. And she's like, go do your thing. Like she was very respectful for his decision. And well, okay, I'll give you that too. So that's where it's like it's kind of like a plus and minus with her. Maybe that means she's more of a plus then, because if she's giving me these kind of options, or not options, like the kind of dynamism of her kind of personality there, then yeah, like okay, I can I guess throw her as a good character.
Sure, I get that completely. If we can, I want to ask you, we're talking a lot about characters and screenwriting and dialogue, but let's talk about the gameplay factor, because this is, of course, a video game.
Yes.
How did you think that the AV presentation of this game, the audio visual presentation, where did it help or hinder the game in terms of the storytelling? What'd you think about it?
First of all, this game is such a uniquely beautiful game. From a visual perspective, and even the music, I thought the music was perfect for this game. It's just like quirky and like very alien in a way. And but there was that one moment where he's like doing the slow walk, and you got that one song now that it's escaping me. But yeah, like it was just so, this is something that I feel like will stand the test. Like I can go back 10 years later and play this game and it'll still feel fresh, if that makes sense. Like it won't, there's something about it that won't feel like dated, whereas like if something needed, like at the time, all the polygons in the world, like this will still look great, and I appreciate that. And but in terms of gameplay, there are moments where it definitely feels slow, because you're kind of dealing with the backtracking a little bit here and there with this game, even though you do have a task. You have your PDA that kind of keeps you on task with things, but it's like you get up and you kind of do your routine, which again, I guess is part of the game, is part of the understanding, at least in the first hour, 2 hours or so of the game, where you're trying to understand Harold's kind of day-to-day life. But yeah, it's just, I guess, I think overall though, I enjoyed the way this. It wasn't a very difficult game, I'll say that much. The only part I would say was difficult was like dealing with the water filtration system, because I felt like, I still don't understand how that puzzle works. But you just hit a few buttons and it eventually works. I don't know what did you feel about it?
I feel this is obviously beautiful, as you mentioned. I mentioned earlier that there's a lot of great cutscenes that have some visual panache that really sell the story. I kind of do agree that gameplay can, when it hinders, it really hinders.
Mm-hmm.
They make you travel the entire length and breadth of the fedora all the time as Harold.
Yeah.
And I get it in that it's motivated and that it's meant to show how ridiculously segmented the All Water Corporation has made this ship. They mentioned several times that All Water charges you for transportation. So it's like, of course, they would make people go through as many loops as possible to get around anywhere on this damn ship because they know they're draining money out of people's wallets. But like outside of walking, I'm not going to call it a walking simulator, but outside of walking, like a lot of the quote unquote gameplay felt very perfunctory or just kind of like, oh, we need to make this a video game. Let's have a puzzle where Harold has to like put the plug in the right socket or hit the on and off button at the right time.
Right.
And then again, you get into, well, it's a commentary on how droll and boring Harold's job is, but it's like, but this is a video game.
Right.
And it's like, how do you make a janitor's job into a fun video game mechanic? There's that question, but it's also, he works on a friggin' spaceship. There's gotta be a way you can make it more interesting. So like, there's moments where, as I said, you could argue it's thematic, but then it's just like, but I'm also in a medium where I'm an active participant. So
yes. That's fair. And I mean, I guess the other part of it is, and I didn't realize this, I did happen to go through someone else's gameplay or playthrough of the game, and there are different pieces of dialogue that I completely missed because maybe I missed a particular opportunity with a side quest, and that kind of unfolded. Like I had gone through the whole side quest with Buddy and like kind of going through the mail and delivering the mail. And then I watched someone else that completely ignored that whole thing and connected with captain of the ship and dealing with that kind of stuff. And they talked to like all these other random people that I never even saw. So, and I think even at one point there's a point where you can go to the compartment for the person that does the voiceover for All Water. And I was like,
I got that.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah.
I was like, oh,
I
cool.
realized what you're talking about when I started getting achievements that basically said like, you did this, so here's a reward. So I'm like, okay, so it's possible to miss this.
Yeah.
But yeah, there is a linear singular ending to this game.
Yes.
But the more you interact with the ship, the more Harold will have a greater or fewer reactions when key plot points happen. So it's, as you mentioned, you can miss things completely if you don't talk to everybody. So it's good to get to know everybody on the ship.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I guess this is a good segue maybe to talk about, is this game worthwhile to potentially do in a different medium, or was Harold Halibut the video game the best medium for this story? What do you think, Tom?
I'm going to say no.
Okay.
And it's because of the pacing issues that I've been kind of gently harping on with the gameplay.
Yeah.
I think there is a good 2 hour or less film in the blueprint of this game script, but the amount of busy work that they give you, the player as Harold, drags out the experience. This is as you mentioned, a kind of 8 to 10 hour game.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, I felt it was way longer.
Yeah.
Just because it's like, Harold, go deliver this.
Yeah.
And you walk out of this part of the ship and you take the tube, and then you walk and you take the next tube,
right,
and you walk like you can spend like 6 minutes just walking from cutscene to cutscene.
Yeah.
And then there's very minimal breakup in terms of gameplay. You know, I like cutscene heavy games when the gameplay kind of like ebbs and flows enough that cutscenes don't feel problematic. You know, everyone dunks on the Metal Gear Solid games for being more cutscene than gameplay, but here's the thing. When you're playing a Metal Gear Solid game, you're usually doing some kind of interesting like stealth action, and then when you're watching the cutscenes, you're watching some goofy, ridiculous stuff. So you get this nice balance of like peanut butter and chocolate, where I don't mind putting my controller down because I'm like, oh, I just beat up a guard, him in a locker, and then tricked his friends into going looking for him, and now I get to watch a fat guy on rollerblades set up bombs. You know, but this, it's just the cutscenes are of Harold doing chores. The gameplay is of Harold doing chores. I'm like, man, get to the alien adventure faster and really just focus on the character relationships and not the busy work. And this is a great movie. You know what I mean? Like, this is I think this would, and the thing is, it's already basically approached design wise as a piece of stop motion animation.
Yeah.
So I would love to see it actually come to fruition. I mean, I'm not trying to dunk on the developers in any mean spirit. spirit, I know
Yeah.
that this took close to a decade, if not more, of development
Yeah.
time, and it is an achievement in terms of video game artistic design.
Yes.
Gorgeous game, but goes a little bit longer than I think it needed to. How about you, Chris? Did you think this was the best medium to tell the story of Harold Halibut?
You know, I'm a little conflicted because at one point, I mean, the name of the developers is Slow Bros. They wanted to have this slow burn of a story. They wanted you to kind of live in Harold's world for a bit and then kind of take him off on this journey. Would that be able to be displayed in under 2 hours? I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm sure. I mean, I'm sure it's possible. And I feel like there are moments in like maybe it isn't necessarily, it doesn't need to be a game. I think you're right. It doesn't need to be a game. Does it need to be a movie? I don't know. It could be like a little mini series, I would say, because there are a lot of there's a lot of moments that I feel like if you had to cut into a 2-hour movie or something, that you would kind of miss, like the little conversations that happen. And like you definitely need that whole like fear and loathing trippy thing that happens. Like that was crazy. That was like a visual treat in itself.
Yes.
And I would want there to be time to expand on that and give me time to learn more about the phylum. And that's just like that's kind of stuff that I feel like it wouldn't have been been captured in just a movie, but like maybe like a short series, a mini series, or something like that would be great. But as a video game, yeah, like I don't think it needed to be a video game. I don't think it really needed to be a video game. To your point, though, it is still amazing that these guys were able to stick with this project for 10 years and get it done. And kudos to them on this game, and like for allowing us to have this opportunity to try this, to see their story play out. So I'm definitely appreciative of that.
Yeah, I think the gaming industry, like the film industry, needs oddball things like this.
Yes.
To encourage, to inspire. Just reflecting on what I sunk time of my life into.
Yeah.
Because to quote adaptation, or to paraphrase adaptation, how dare you ask me to spend my precious hours on your movie? You know what I mean? So yeah, when it's the cost investment of any piece of entertainment is time off your life here on Earth. So when I ask the question, or when you ask the question, was this the best medium for the story? I'm going to reflect on, well, what did it do with my time? So I think I would have rather watched this in 2 hours personally.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, to be honest, I would probably watch a Kojima movie, or a Kojima movie as opposed to playing it. But yeah, like I mean, it was great to have this kind of positive story, though, I'll say, because like there's just been like, when you think about video games now, is there a lot of positive stories out there? Like I feel like a lot of them are pretty dark, and or like kind of downers, and it's like it's nice to have that kind of change of pace.
Yeah, we do have obviously the medium. Yeah, we do obviously have cozy games as a genre, but a lot of them are probably more vibes focused. I do admire this for being something that tells a story directly, and has a set ending. I like games that have multiple endings. They can be good.
Yeah.
But sometimes a strong direct ending that has a clear or a purposeful message can be way better.
Yeah. I do have one question, I will say. If there was a sequel to an extent, what do you think would be the better story to follow? The Fedora going back to Earth, or Harold and the phylum?
The Fedora going back to Earth, because as we were talking with the themes earlier, I don't think I want more for Harold.
Yeah.
I want Harold to just be happy with what he has.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think given the wealth of the cast of characters on the Fedora, I definitely would love to see a story from their point of view as they try to journey back to Earth.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, like I was kind of like, oh, could that work with Harold, like kind of being like be a little bit more comedic, just fish out of fish out of water or human in water now, dealing with that kind of society and trying to fit in there. There could be some interesting conflicts there, or maybe not. But I agree, because there's more interesting characters that are potential conflicts and stuff like that in the fedora, because Slippy's still there. What if he tries to do something else over there? That's Castletop's still there. Maybe she wants to scheme out and all that stuff. So yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. The only question I had after this was all over is like, is the water on that planet drinkable by humans? Because if not, I'm pretty sure Harold's going to be dead within like 4 days of the ship leaving. Like, they established that he can eat the phylum food, which is fine and good for him, but he needs water. He needs H2O, and he's on a planet that is basically a giant ocean, but our ocean is not drinkable. So is this planet? I was kind of that's why I had an amusing thought of like, is Harold gonna die really quick?
Well, I don't know. That's a great question, because the other part of it is like the all water system. How are their clothes not drenched every time they how do people not have hypothermia when they use like this system all the time?
We promised that not every episode of this is just going to be, CinemaSins ding, but it was just like funny thoughts. Yeah, no, I hear you. Yeah.
But
they travel via toilet, so like, why aren't they wet?
Exactly. But I mean, that's what I got with Harold Halibut.
Me too. It's on Game Pass. You should check it out and let us know what you think, or if you have played it, definitely share some comments, hit us up. We'd love to talk about this game and its story with more of you.
Yeah, who's your favorite character? I'd love to know.
Why is it Slippy?
Why is this
Why would you say that? Some person on the internet.
Don't do that, please. Thanks for listening. If you like this show, please be sure to give us a follow or even leave a review. Every bit of feedback helps.
Find us online by searching Action Lines Pod on Instagram, Blue Sky, Substack, and Twitch for more content and conversations from Chris and myself.
Until next time, go out there and enjoy some good gaming stories.
Fade out.